Okay, there we go. Okay, so when you click on create a new one, it's going to walk you through picking some settings, and you can always change these settings. If you know that you're going to be sewing on, velvet or quilted cotton, go ahead and select that now. You can always change those settings later. I'm just going to stick with cotton, and I can pick what color cotton background I want to see this digitized on. And for this, I'm just going to leave it at the default setting. Maybe I'll go to white. I just, pick that color. And, I have different, like there's crepe polyester, there's cross cloth, and you can see I have more colors in the cross stitch cloth. Okay. So I can actually see kind of where those points are in the cloth. So it's got little things in it. I'm going to go back to cotton and stay with white and just click on next. And here it's asking me, what image do you want to use? And I've already selected this image, but I'm going to explain a little bit about images in this program. I am going to use a WMF image. If I'm using a true WMF image, what it is it's a vector image that's been exported to this format from Illustrator or from Corel Draw, and it's generally pretty clean artwork. Sometimes the lines break up a little bit, but generally it's pretty clean. So if you get a clip art package or you purchase images from one of the places that sell images for artwork, if it's just been saved as a WMF image, that doesn't mean that it has those attributes, right? It's not necessarily a clean vectorish kind of image. So, just a little bit about that, but it's okay because I can use any image in here, but the automatic options definitely work better with vector art. If you come down, I'm not sure why it always says that, but when you come down here, you can look at this and you can see the different formats that are selected. Most of us, or that are available, most of us don't have access to Adobe Illustrator unless we know, somebody who knows how to work in that program, right? And, but you can see you've got AutoCAD, you've got all of these options. For the most part, we end up with WMF or with a bitmap, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and select this image. It's a very simple little image. It's, a true WMF image or true format, and I'm going to say open. And, it shows me what I've selected here. I have other options. I could get my images from other places, right? I could do a new monogram or a new graphic, which would let me draw my own. But I'm going to go ahead and say next. I've got this selected, and it gives me this little smoothing option. When you start out using the default. But, this will kind of smooth some edges if your image is a little rough. But, generally, it does a pretty good job at the default setting. And that's something that, you'll want to play with when you have some time and, you're not concerned about getting something done. So I'm just going to say okay and leave it at the 10%. Okay, now this is a very simple one color image, but it's showing me that it's picking up two colors here. If I just want this to be one color, I'm just going to slide the slider over until this says one, and you can see it took all of those colors and put them into one thread. If I left it at two, I've got two colors and two different thread colors, right? So to make it a little quicker, I'm going to say just leave it at one. And these are the colors that it's combined, and this is the thread that it's using. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just click Finish now and let the automatic portion go through. And you can see I've got a quick little design. I can do a lot of things with this design. First, I can click on this little sequence view over here, right? And since this is all one color, I can just click on that and, select everything at one time. And I'm going to zoom out. The nice thing I kind of like about using this program, you end up in the program to go zoom in, zoom out, and you have to either use keyboard controls or you have to use, the little magnifying glass, right? On this, I can use the scroll wheel on my mouse, and I can zoom in and I can zoom out. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and here is what the program saw and did. That's a pretty quick little design. If I look at this and I think, well, I don't this one. I just left on it. And over here, there's that little tag says object properties. There's a little like, tack, thumbtack icon. If I click on that thumbtack icon and it's up and down, this will stay open for me. If I click on this thumbtack because I want more room on my screen, I just have to over to open these. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just this open so you can see them. Okay, this piece that I've selected, it's telling me that is a step fill. That means it's a complex fill. Some of the companies have different words, step, complex, parallel. It basically means it's a regular, kind of standard fill that you'll see on embroidery designs. If I want to change that to a satin, I just click satin. And you can see it's done a very good job. And the areas that it's done a very good job on are right here and right here, where you have those little pieces that join in, right? So it's done a good job. If I think that's maybe a little bit too, I can always put a satin in it. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it at satin for right now. And I'm going to go to 100% so you can see what this looks like. If you look at this and you think, really, I'm not really sure I like the way this has been handled. See how that satin joins in here? If you don't like the way the program handled that, have some options. You have a slice tool. It's a divide tool. It doesn't break up the areas. What it does is I can say, I want this to stitch in one direction. And see how it's cut this piece? And I can always drag this around, or if something happens I don't like, I can always click on the X and just turn that off. But, if I want this to kind of sew like a little bit of a different section, I just slice it. I also have a direction tool which works for any fill. If I decide I really want the fill that direction, I can do that too. And if I make a mistake, anything I don't like, I can just undo and put it back to the way it was. Hey, when I look at, like, here's this little piece here. This is a perfect example. This is having some trouble making a shape, but, I could draw like a direction line and see if that helped. And if it didn't help, it's actually two pieces on top of each other. Hold on. There we go. So, when you get something like that, when you're looking at this and like I clicked on this and it didn't make any change, I had to look and here's the first piece and here's the second piece underneath. So remember those two colors add? We'll just get that piece. See the difference? You guys have any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Now here, if I wanted to make a little bit of change to this shape, maybe I want to make this a little bit wider, right? I would come over to these tools. If you can see these tools, I'll drag them over here. They're docked on the side over here. But these are, this is my select tool. This is my edit tool. There's a zoom, and, anything that has a little triangle has flyout options, so I have more options, right? Here's a ruler. That's the directions that we were just playing with. That's the slice tool. And here's a slow redraw, and these are manual punch tools. Text, and then, of course, monogramming, right? So this is the toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and just redock it and drag it back over here. If I want to change this shape and make it a little beefier, I would select Edit Shape icon, and it shows like the little nodes on it. Once I click on that, I just come over here and select what I want to edit. And you can see my mouse in the little node, right? So if I want to make this a little fatter, then I can just drag that. And you can see the arrows. See that little extended arrow line?
Mm-hmm.
That allows me to control my curves. When I moved that, what it did was move this, and that's called a Bezier curve. Now, if that wouldn't have let me do what I wanted to do, I always have the option when I'm in edit mode to right click and add an additional node, to delete a node, to smooth it, or to even split some things. Okay, so I'm going to just add a little node here. And you can see now I've got this little node that moves by itself and doesn't affect this node down here. And the same thing for down here. Like I would just add a node and maybe stretch that out a little bit more and reshape this a little bit. I can also get rid of things like, for example, if I really don't want these little pieces here, I can just left click on them and press the delete key. I can hold the mouse and left click and drag and scoop up more than one piece and press the delete key as well. So, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the automatic. And the automatic is nice when you have a very clean image. But, it's the same for any program. There's that portion, and then there's the semi-automatic where you use some of the automatic and then you create things manually. The difference in this program between, like, for example, the Digitizer program is that when I am working in the Digitizer program and I use like a satin stitch or a column stitch, I have to go right to left, right to left. This program is really just a drawing program. When I am digitizing in this program, for the most part, I am drawing or tracing what I want there, the area to be. There's no side to side, even though I can select the satin stitch and, make satin lettering or make a satin stitch area. So, that's one of the differences in the program. Now, I'm going to this little design and I'm going to show you a couple of different things. To edit, it has this little sequence view. You can right now it's just in simple mode. It has everything selected. This little light bulb here, if I click, it gives options. Here's my optimizer once. That's going to optimize it in the automatic. Simple, let's just rearrange some objects, or advanced. Okay, so rearrange and modify. I'm going to go ahead and say advanced and click OK. And what's going to happen is all these little pieces are going to show up for the whole design. Here's those little circles that I want to get rid of. So I can actually hold my control key and select all three of them at once and press delete. If I go to the other option of, let's just rearrange things and click on that. Because this is one color, I'm going to get pretty much the same look. It does combine some things, like this is, going to be one piece. But, then again, here are the pieces that I can select and get rid of at one time. So that's kind of the gist of the automation. And the automation is going to be as good as the image you have. If it's a very clean image, you're going to get a pretty clean, design. Now, there are some other tools. I'm going to go ahead and create a, new design file. Other file in the background. So be careful. You don't want to have like 20 of these windows open. But, you 3 or 4 of them, depending on your computer, will, not slow anything down. So I'm going to go ahead and, pick desk time. And we'll just go for the blue denim. How's that? And I'm going to pick a different image. I'm going to pick this little pet image, right? It's a bitmap. And I'm going to go ahead and say open it. And next. And it's asking me, do you want to open it as a backdrop? Do you want to open as photo stitch or cross stitch, right? If I say trace, it's going to attempt to convert this. And this is going to depend on how clean of an image that you have. So let's see what the trace does. Okay, here's what the computer is seeing. I can scale the image if I want to make that a little bit bigger. I just select scale and, increase the size of the image, right? Accuracy. How accurate do I want this to be? I can change the setting. Usually I start with the default settings and then make some changes. Okay, color limit. How many colors do you want? Just because we're seeing two blues, a cream, an orange, and a brown, right? Um, it doesn't mean that those are the only colors. That's what our eyes are seeing. There's probably a lot more colors. So, look at this image and say, okay, two blues, the brown, the orange, right? The cream, and then there's the white. So, let's go ahead and say six colors. You have to include that background color. You can see what happens. It's taken some of these colors, right? If I go back to the 99 limit, see the image? If I go to, you know, 5 colors, see what happens? If I go to 6 colors, there you go. I have to include the background as a color. So, the program is always going to look at that background. That's why the wing disappeared when I only put 5. But this is looking pretty good. Even though the wing is gray, who cares? We can always change that color. What we want is the program to clean up all of those extra colors that our eyes blend together in pixels, right? Use background. I don't want to use a background, even though like his little face here is white, right? I may have to punch that manually, which is not a big deal. But if I use a background, it's going to, create all of this, which I really don't want to do. If you have changed settings and you're completely lost, you can just hit default and everything goes back to the way it was. Okay? I am going to limit my colors though to 6 colors. And I'm going to go and let the program trace this. See, we've got kind of the same thing here, right? There's my background. You can see it's going to just disappear. As soon as I mouse over it, disappears, right? But here's my brown, my orange, my blue, and there's that gray. So I'm still going to have to worry about this. It still saw that cream kind of color in the background, but not a big deal. Most of this is pretty much done for me, right? So at this point, I'm just going to say, let's go, let's fix. And what I've got is, here's this piece in the background. I'm in my simple mode over here. So I'm going to come down to, the little control, and I'm going to say, let's just do the simple mode and break this apart. Here's the piece I want to get rid of. I just select it and delete it. So now, I've got a couple of little cleanup areas, and I might have to punch his nose in. I've got like that little piece. And the nice thing is I can kind of zoom in and pick out these little pieces. I don't want to get rid of his nose. The outline is actually there. I just don't have stitches in it. But, as you scroll through this, you can see this didn't do too bad of a job. I might have to clean up this a little bit here, see how that curves there, and clean up a little bit in here. But, for the most part, I pretty much have gotten what I need to have done. A couple of things I need to change. And, of course, I would want to make this more interesting. Okay, that's a step fill. Oh, let's give it a little different pattern. Or, and kind of play with these. I might want to make his little eyeballs bigger. See his little eyes there? I could either just click on them and drag them bigger. See what a difference that makes? Or I could use the manual punch tools and make a circle. And, that the program, this was a pretty simple image. Like, I'm not going to go get a picture of a very intricate shaded flower and throw it in here and think the automatic is going to do wonderful. I'm not going to do that. That's just not what the automatic digitizing on any program is for. Okay? You guys have any questions? Any comments? You guys all good? Okay.
Yeah, it's
All
good,
right.
thanks.
So this is all making sense to you, right?
Right.
Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up this image and do this a little bit different. I'm not going to do the whole image, but there's some automatic things in this program which are kind of neat, but it is a little bit different than Digitizer. This is, I talked about doing satin stitching. I'm not going to go side to side when I create satin stitch like I would in Digitizer. But let me close this. And I usually like a lot of room on my desktop, so I'll, kind of those little tabs over. And there's options here. And here's the palette. I can do the same thing, palettes, right? I can click on that and it'll drop down. And anytime I need to change a color, I just come here. Like, for example, I want to change the color of that thing. I just come here and click on it. And let me explain these real quick for you. Um, Over here, I don't know if you can see the palette where my mouse is, down at the bottom. You guys see that okay? Okay. There's a little icon. It's got a pencil on the top half, and it has just kind of a solid bottom half. That is, allowing me to define what I want. For example, if I say, really want to outline that, when I click on this, I can say, oh, let's outline him in brown, or, I can come up here and pick a new color. Let's outline him in red. See what happens? He's now outlined. So this little palette down here, and you can see the icons now changed for this area, right? Here's this area. I see the icon here. It's saying I have a red outline. Because there's no bucket icon in the red, the fill area is still blue. Okay, does that make sense? If I want an off an outline, I come over to that little blank square and I click on what do I want to turn off? The outline, so it's the top half of the square, and I can just turn that off. When this is selected, this is my color palette. I can come in here and I can change the fill to any color I want, and I can click on the top half of any color and outline it in that color. See? And then the same goes for, of course, turning it off. If this is selected and I don't want an outline, just click and turn the outline off. All right, so let me go ahead and close this. And it's going to ask me if I want to save it. I want to say no. And I'm going to create a new file. And, we'll kind of with the denim and say next. And I'm going to use the same image, this, right? So I just say next. It's asking me, do I want to open it as a backdrop or do I want to trace? I'm going to go ahead and open it as a backdrop this time. I finish, and there's my backdrop. Now, if I want to resize this, the image is kind of stuck back there. I can't click on it. I can't move it. It's stationary. So if I want to make some changes, I have to go up to my view, backdrop, and I can hide it, put it below the embroidery, fade it out, put it above the embroidery, or I can change its properties. If I go into the properties, this lets me scale. And I like this because I can see exactly how it's scaling. Is it going to fit my hoop or is it going to be for my hoop, right? And, it's going to scale it to within a limit. So I'm going to go ahead and just scale that a little bit big. And you can see I can straighten this. I can rotate this image. I can do all kinds of things here. And it's a very simple, easy controls. So when you're happy with that, just click on the X, close it out, and, there's my backdrop. Now, this program handles things a little differently. This sequence view, it doesn't have anything in it yet, but this sequence view is just the most phenomenal tool. There's a lot of automatic things in this program. One is it automatically moves your in and out points. So if I do, for example, the bird first, and I do this wing first, and then I do his body, right? I can move that wing around, and it's not going to cause me any problems. I'm not, if I had another blue section it was connected to, it would change the in and out points for me. But so I can digitize and move things. It's usually good, though, to kind of have a logic to things, right? Like when I look at this, the first color, I'm going to have to do colors a couple of times, but the first color I would do is be orange. and then I would worry about these orange pieces later. So I would probably go orange, um, maybe the white, the orange, the brown. Okay, so that would get me to here, but I'd have to put the orange again to finish the cat's face. There's just really no way around that because of the image. And then I could do, the blues, and if I do the brown, I've got the same problem here. So I'm going to have to do the brown and the orange a couple of times, right? But, think about what's logical. But remember, you can always change things around. I'm going to come down here to this little sequence control. And this is how it shows me and lets me access things in, this little sequence viewer we looked at. And I'm going to say, you know what, I want to do advanced. And just click on that. So now I'm all set up and I can decide what I want to start doing first. And there are a couple of different tools. Remember I said anything that has like this little arrow on the you know, bottom corner or triangle has a flyout menu, right? Here's the tools. This magic wand does not work quite like picking a color. It's going to more pick an area. This is my favorite tool because it does a couple of different things. This is going to do a freehand shape as well. So this tool and this tool are my favorite. This one creates Bezier shapes. So I'll kind of show you what the differences are. If I'm using, this first tool right here, it's going to let me kind of trace, and it does, boom, boom, right? There's 2 points. I can always come back and pick up this point and, just draw. So this tool works in this way. If I click the first one, it places the anchor point, right? If I click a second point, it ends the line. There's no curving, there's no anything, unless, of course, I want to hold the mouse button down and draw. And since I'm left-handed and use the mouse right-handed, I'm generally not going to do this. If you have a tablet and you're comfortable with drawing on your tablet, this might be a good tool for you. It is, however, if I make like a circle, right, it will make an area. If I don't close this, it's not going to close automatically. All right. And let me get rid of all of this. Okay, now the other is one that does Bezier curves. What this does is if I click, okay, if I just click, now there's no right clicking here. It just ends the line. So if I click and I click, I'm going to get these squared points. Well, it's great if you're doing something that's jaggedy and squared and has no curves. But if I want a curve, I'm going to have to hold my mouse button down and I'm going to drag, and you can see those arrows coming, right? And that'll let me adjust a Bezier curve. See what it's doing? This takes a little practice to get used to, but that's what it'll do. And each one of these tools will allow you to make a line or an area. You just need to close them. Okay, my favorite tool is this one. And, and I'll show you real quick before I go into that one what this does. This little magic wand, when I go to click, it's not a color picking kind of wand. It's not going to pick anything in your design. Okay, it does something different, which you kind of cover in the other webinars. But this is my favorite tool, and I'll show you why. When I'm clicking, if I start here, it's going to give me an anchor point, like a squared point, right? And as I go around, it automatically curves. When I come down to a corner, I just press and hold the mouse button a little bit longer, and I can get perfectly straight segments. And of course, I would come up and close that off. And if I wanted to edit, I would just on that edit automatically. And, you can go out of 3D view, which makes it a little bit easier to see, and do it that way. Or in this program, you can actually turn off your fill so you have the outline and you can see perfectly what's going on. And these little arrows, you can move a couple of different ways. Like I can squish them up closer to decrease the curve, or I can just pull them out to curve them. And then, of course, I always have the ability to just move the node and then curve. Okay, so what I've done is basically draw the outline around this shape. And, I left it in line format so I could see what was going on. But if I wanted to fill I would just kind of pick what color I wanted. Let's scooch over here and find a color. Okay, there's my fill color, and then I'm going to turn off the outline. And, there's my little area, right? Just to give you an idea of what that does. Now, I said I would have started with the orange section or maybe the white section. So, this is a tool that truly I do prefer because I can go like this. There's my left click, and then I can just let the program automatically curve anywhere I want it to curve. See, that's just taking no right click, no efforts. I'm just clicking. And when I come down here, hold that mouse a little bit longer or the mouse button a little bit longer, and then just come up here and hold it to close on a square point. And I can also continue. I don't have to stop and create the area. I can just come over here and just continue because these are going to be the same color, right? And you can see I'm just curve, 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 straight point. Hold that mouse a little bit long or the button a little bit longer, straight point. And the same here. I'm going to close off with a straight point. Okay, so I've drawn everything that's the same color. And I can either, right click to create it or click on any of these buttons. There are my two areas. From there, it's just a little bit of editing, changing the color, removing an outline, and, oops, still in the punch tool. And there you go. So it really is, like I'm looking at faux stitches on my screen right now, right? It looks like stitches. But really what this is it's an outline. It's actually a drawing. Okay, it's an outline is the best way to do it. And the difference between this and the other program, Digitizer, is that, Digitizer is going to make outlines, but it does them a little bit differently. You still have the same edit thing. This is literally like drawing. I'm drawing a vector image. We talked about like the satin stitching. And the other programs, if I wanted to make these ears satin stitch, I would go, click, 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 and I would just keep clicking over, right? It would go something like this. Yeah, right, that back and forth motion, right? To make the satin fill. You know what I'm talking about? On this, I don't have to worry about this. On this, I'm literally just going to trace this image. And this is just nothing more than hand control of your mouse or your tablet. I'm just going to trace it. The tighter the curve, the more clicks I would put. And when I come up to here, just left click and hold it a little bit longer, left click and hold it a little bit longer. And, there's my area. Now from here, okay, I don't want an outline, and I'll make it a satin stitch. And from here, it's just a matter of whoops, sorry, that's my redraw. It's a matter of picking, what direction you want those ears to go. Okay, and that's, I could even put in like a satin fill. And the same thing for, this section down here. Anything that I've digitized, maybe I don't want this section, in that direction, I can come down here and just select it. You can see the change, right? Now, these are two different pieces. But because I created them in an image there, it sees it as one piece. And I can resolve that by selecting them and just right-click and break them apart. So now they're two pieces, right? They're not touching and they're broken apart. And I could make this any color. I can also control the directions now separately. Does that make sense? You guys, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of the digitizing, the quick part of this thing. I like this program. It does take a little bit of getting used to, but you really are drawing a vector image when you're digitizing. It's a little bit different than some of the other programs. There are some automatic things in it. Let me kind of zoom out real quick. There are some automatic things, like here I have the shapes, right? And I have a lot of different shapes. And I have some options, like here's a star. If I go to tool options up here, number of rays on my star. Well, let's make this crazy and put 12, right? start, like the angle that I want to start at, the ray size. I can make all of these changes. And when I drag this, see what happens? There's the star with the number of rays that I told it. So there's some quick little things that you can do in the program as well. And if I don't, if I don't want to make a sign, or if I just want to make it interesting, I can do these little shapes, right? Go ahead and open a new file, and we'll just send them, I guess. And we'll make like a new monogram. So when I click on new monogram and go forward, how big do you want this monogram? Do you want it to be proportional? Here's your width, here's your height. Here's your text. You can put your monogram in. How much do you want to stretch it? You can see, in the little sequence view over here what it's doing. What template do I want? Well, let's see. I think I like maybe that template, and it's going to adjust that height. What font do I want? I'm just going to kind of pick, we'll go with Broadway. And do I want a frame or don't I want a frame? You can see it's telling me it's going to stretch things, right? And these are the built-in frames. So we'll pick this one. See how it stretched it around it? Even if I pick this one, see how it stretched that frame around that? So it's going to automatically adjust it. And I'm going to kind of come down here and scroll through the frames. These are in the suite. These are built into the suite. So it's just a real quick automatic thing. Like, if you like that one, that's going to outline it and make it a little bit bigger. You can move these around automatically. See how that's moving around, right? And these are I just kind of want to scroll through and show you what's in here because some of these are kind of interesting. Okay, so there's a lot of these little frames in there. I'm just going to go ahead and grab one real quick. I think I'll go with this one. And I hit next. I can always change this color later or double click on it here and say, oh, you know what? Let's make this orange. Okay, these are my thread colors. Maybe I want my lettering to be peach. So I change these colors that it's showing in this image right now to any color I want, and I can click on Finish. And it must be thinking about it here. So, and I'm not sure if I didn't change them, but each piece here that I click on is resizable. This is resizable. If I come over here and I change that basic option and go to advanced, I've got, here's my outline. It breaks it apart. Here's this. I can get rid of the outline a couple of ways. I can delete it that way, or I could have just clicked on the fill. Here is what it automatically made for, my lettering, right? And this is the true type font. So if I want to control how this looks, I can come over and click on this and say, really, I really want to this look. So let's use this little slicing tool. I'm going to slice there. I'm going to slice there. Let's slice these down so that they, have to do something a little bit different. I see how those sliced up. Now I can pick, I guess that was a direction tool. Sorry, wrong tool. We'll just pick the slice. Okay, so if I slice this, hold on. There. Okay, slice. It's not letting me slice these. I can just control the directions on that monogram. Sorry about that. But anyway, so I could do something else. So I imagine that if I select these and break them apart, I break apart the letters and then I have complete control. Okay. Well, let me do, the slicing because of the shape, but I could say, really I want this to stitch in this direction. Anyway, so that's a little bit on monogramming. The lettering is, if I go to put lettering, and it is true type font up here, and I can pick, do I want it bold? Do I just want the smart text? Do I want it to be italic? What font do I want? And we'll just leave that here. And, when I've decided what I want, I just click here and type in what I want. And at this point, it's still lettering. If I select it, it goes into the stitches, and it automatically outlines this. So hold on, I'm just trying to get a corner thing so I can drag it. Okay, so it automatically outlines that, and I can always just outline by clicking here and turning it off. And I always come over here and say I want it to be a stitch. And this one, this is where the directions would really come in handy. If it'll let me slice the true type font. The slice here would come in handy as well. See the difference in the slice here would come in handy. So you can control most things. Monogramming handles things a little bit differently because it put those letters into a frame. But your standard lettering is going to let you control what goes on. Now, the beauty of the suite, let me close that down, is I'll show you a little bit of the sequence. Oh, I didn't view. I'll show you a little bit on the sequence and a couple of different things that you can do. Open a recent one. Okay. This is a design, that I did in the program. And, I might want to bling this up a little bit, right? I can, just select these little pieces if I want to get rid of them and put bling in them. Or, I can do whole fills, or I can do just bling it out. So, I'm going to start with just creating a little shape. So when I select this icon, okay, I can just click and place crystals anywhere. If I want to change those, I go to my standard tools, I select the crystal, and maybe I want to make that Capri blue. And, maybe I want it to be like really a big crystal or really a small crystal. And, so I can pick these range of crystals or any color. And I can use these anywhere. Just pick what I want and come in and click it, basically. That'll change it. Select what you want and just click and put them anywhere you want. So you could decorate this any way you wanted to. Now, I could do some other things like I can, create an area. I'm just going to kind of grab a standard shape. And I can use the fill option. So, here is my area. You can see as soon as I come over here, it gives me a bunch of options. Like, do I want an array? Do I want a crystal fill? Do I want a net fill? And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's do a crystal fill. What color do I want it? Well, let's make this amethyst. What size? And I can change these and adjust it, and it's going to fill it. When it doesn't fill to the end, it's because it really just can't fill, that particular shape perfectly. But so there is a crystal fill, and that's done with the shape, right? I have an outline that's available too. So if I come in here and I say, really, let's make this a pink outline, then, that's going to give me some options as well. I've got a pink outline, and I can change this line to anything I want. As you can see up here, I've got the bucket for the fill, and I've got, this little pencil for my line, and I can say, oh, hey, let's make this crystals too. And the program adjusts because you can't, cut these crystals out on top of each other. And I can space these, like I can actually space the crystals apart. Same thing with the fill. In my settings, I could space the crystals apart. Okay. And I can rotate these. So I have a little bit different rotation on the fill. Although on this, because it's square, it doesn't make much difference. And, that's kind of the neat thing about the crystals. I can also do this lines. Like if I come in here and I say, let me get rid of this. I come in and say, I really want to do like a little trace and just add a little bit of bling instead of bling everywhere. I can do that very easily just by tracing a line. Okay, like maybe I want to put it inside the wings. I could actually use them to do that too, but it's, just as easy to come here and say, okay, start my crystals here and just trace, where you want the crystals to be and just create a line. And really, I've just drawn this line, right? Okay, so there's a line, and let's do crystals. And let's make them blue. And oh, yeah, we want to use the little crystals. And there you go. You guys have any questions?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, what else the program can do, because we're going to go ahead end here pretty quick. What else the program can do is this. How many of you guys have like a silhouette cutter or a cameo cutter, or silhouette cameo, or a zing cutter, or any kind of craft cutter that can connect to your computer?
I do.
Okay, when I put these crystals into anything, what I can do this, I can say file, let's export this to my cutter. Okay, so no matter how complicated this is, it's going to make my template, and I can break that template into color. Well, the program actually breaks it into colors, right? And I can let it go and cut the little, crystal foam, so I can put the crystals in it and then put the tape over it. And I can create a template no matter how complicated the design might get. And then send it to my cutter, and boom, 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 you're done. But if that's the case, that means I can also send lines to cutter. For example, this is not like a good image to use, but let me close out of this. And think of one that. Let's open this one. Nope, those are too small. I will just go back to this one, I guess. Now, if I wanted to make this an applique, this orange piece of, an applique, and then the blue piece an applique, right? I wouldn't, cut these sections out. But what I would do is say, just make that an outline and take fill out of there. So now what I've got is outline, right? And then I've got the embroidery on top of it. But if I want to cut the applique sections, like maybe I want to do the bird again, let me whip the bird on there. And I'm going to use fabric for these. I'm not going to, embroider these basic shapes. I'm going to applique them. Okay, so there's lines, right? And I would adjust these. Like I would, of course, you'd want to put the lines in your embroidery too, so that, you had your tack down and such. But, what I need is just one line. And, there's the line. And I would want to cut that shape out, to the size and maybe a little bit bigger than what I want the actual applique to be. Okay? So I've got the blue applique and orange applique, and if I finish this, I would have a brown applique. So what I can do is say, okay, export this to my cutter. See, there's my orange line that's going to cut out, and there's my navy blue line that's going to cut out. And I could, put fabric on my tray, stiffen it up. Sometimes I'll use like the applique backing on it, but you have to be careful because some of them pull apart real easy. Or I'll just spray it with like the stiffening, spray, and stiffen that up and let it cut it on my cutter with the fabric blade. Or if you wanted to do vinyl, you could actually do the entire design in vinyl pieces in different colors, and it would break this up. It would send these out to my cutter and give me the opportunity, to change the color sections and do each section and cut out each piece. So if I wanted to make this vinyl or paper for like a scrapbook thing, and I, wanted these pieces, all of these pieces, I would just put an outline on them and take out the fill. and my cutter would cut each piece. So anything I do in the program that has a line or an outline around it, even lettering, can be converted automatically and sent to my cutter. And if you're doing something for a friend, when you go to export, you can export to SVG. So, if they have, like some of the cutters, some of the other programs, that send out to a cutter, open an SVG file. It's a vector file so that you can share a cutter file with your friend. This also has a quilt portion, like where I say export to quilts. If you have a long arm quilting machine, it takes a specific format. You can create a design in RAM and you can set it out to one of those formats. There's QData. If you click on this, there's a DXF file. These are some, image files, but there's your PC Quilter, your Quilt CAD, your Statler Stitcher, your CompuQuilter. So you can send these out to a long arm quilting machine as well. Now, this does the quilting designs a little bit differently than some of the CAD programs do that come with the quilt machines. You have a little more overlap sometimes on this, but, that's going to depend on how complicated your image is. You guys have any questions at all?
No.
Okay. What do you guys think of this program, if I can ask?
I like it.
I really
do anything with it yet.
Yeah. It's
this is very interesting.
It is. It's if you guys, I know some of the surveys said that people were looking for software they haven't bought it yet, and there's a little bit of a difference. Like when if I save this for like the Elna or the Genome machines, I can save it into that format, but I can save these designs into any format, right? It always helps because you can drag and drop that file into, your USB key, or you can send it right from the computer. You can see on here it had that option to export to Genome. Okay, well, it'd be the same for your Elna. You could export to the Elna through that USB stick or that USB connection. It's a nice program, but it does act a little different than the Digitizer. The Digitizer is a very nice program too. This gives you the options for the crystals and for a cutting machine. And when I first got my cutting machine, I really wasn't sure if I was going to, really use the cutting machine much, but the vinyl, that heat set vinyl, and, I do a little bit of bling. I'm not a real big blingy person. You could actually create a complete crystal design in the software as well. But what I find is the vinyl, that heat set vinyl, or, like the cardstock, I'm doing a little bit more and more of that, than I ever thought I would. But the vinyl, the first time I tried the vinyl, I thought, oh, this ought to be interesting, right? And didn't have like high hopes for it, really. I was impressed. I made a shirt for my friend, and she thought I bought it. So, this program just gives you that option. And it does behave a little different. You're drawing. You are tracing everything here. Now, one thing I did forget to tell you about some of the automatic options. Like if I had this, this section all filled up, right? Let me go pick out the little bird body. Okay, there's my bird body, and I'm just going to fill the little body again, right? And get rid of my outline. Okay, if I have him filled, I'm going to go out of 3D so I can kind of see. I have like this option in this over here. I have all the options. I can control everything. But see where it says sequence auto, that means the program's going to try to control it. You can always change that. Remove overlaps. Never always, auto. If I really want to make sure that when I put that wing in, that this is going to be, the stitches underneath are going to remove, I'm going to say always. I might leave it on auto, because auto will pick out like the small pieces and not necessarily remove things. But watch what happens when, I put this in. Instead of my having to dig a hole, what happens is, let me go over to my sequence view. See, it automatically does it for me. And that's kind of neat. I control it with my stitch direction. Like, if it's a small area like the eye, I wouldn't want that hole to be there, and I would just put auto. But for the big wing, I don't want that wing to be there. So I could have saved myself a little bit of time down here, just made that big orange, the big orange section, and then put these pieces on top and let it automatically create for me. When I removed this piece, because remember I said we were drawing, when I removed this piece, the hole's gone. So, it's kind of a neat program. Instead of having to make holes and close holes, it can do it automatically for you. So there's some fun little things in this program. So, well, any questions or anything you're curious about in the program?
I can't think of any right now, but I'm sure when I get in the program, I'd think of some.
Okay, Deb, was that you also asking a question?
Yes. I was wondering if this is available, like you said you were taping it, is it available after
Yeah.
this,
Tomorrow I will send out a note through the newsletter again and say, okay, here is the link to view the video.
Oh, wonderful. Sorry, I have to leave. I really
Oh, that's okay. We're yeah, that's okay. We're actually done because we'll start. We figured about an hour, and I'm actually going to stop the recording now too. We figured about an hour